Hello, my name is Bob. Welcome to a short stop on pool. This week it's time for another failure rack. That is, a rack that I played where I made a mistake and didn't make it through the rack. But then I set the shot back up and I make it the rest of the way through the rack the second time. So in this rack there's going to be a very important lesson, and indeed, in my opinion, is the key to making high runs. And for some of you it's going to be real obvious, for others it'll be a little bit subtle, but I guarantee you that it's a very important lesson. And it's one that I keep learning and relearning over and over. So as you watch this rack, see if you can see what that mistake is, see if you can see it coming, and see if you can anticipate what the key to high runs is. Let's get into the rack. This rack is from about a year ago, and I'm playing on my friend's Gandy home table. We're going to start with a typical center table side pocket break shot. And I would say that's pretty much ideal, and the main reason why I say it's ideal is because my cue ball moved from here, whoops, get my pen out, my cue ball moved from here to there. Well, the goal of any break shot is to keep the cue ball under control. Obviously you don't want to scratch. Whenever your cue ball on that particular break shot can move to the side rail, sometimes it goes straight to the side rail and then comes off and dies there, or just comes straight back or straight over to here. That's optimal. There are times when shooting that particular break shot that the cue ball goes to the side rail and spins way up table, or sometimes it spins way down table. And sometimes you'll get lucky and be okay, but that's less than optimal. So I call this a very successful break shot. The other reason is that there's only 2 balls in the rack area. Yeah, I'm using a template rack. This table last year wasn't breaking real well, so we were using a template rack for some time. So there's only 2 balls in the rack area. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 what I would call perimeter balls that move the farthest. The 15 went this ball here, the 14, went all the way up table and back down. And then I've got 7 balls, these 4 here and the 3 here, that I would say just separated from the rack. They didn't go to the rail, they just came loose. So that's really ideal. Cue ball under control, minimal perimeter balls, minimal clusters in the center of the table. Just an ideal break shot. So rack analysis is important on this type of rack right from the start. Obviously the 9 or the 3 could be a break ball. The 13 possibly could be a break ball. It looks pretty close, but the 1's not bad. The 11 and 7 are a little bit high, but they could work. And with all these opportunities, one of these balls might get nudged into a better break ball position. So I'm in fantastic shape as far as that goes. There's only one ball that I would call a trouble ball, and that's the 14. And it's on the rail right next to the side pocket. There are no up table balls. There's no balls past the side pockets. So this is really ideal. In fact, I know that I run this rack with the goal of not even running into a ball. And that's not necessary. There's very safe ways to nudge these balls. Many players might want to nudge this 11 and 7 just a little bit, always with an insurance ball. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the first thing that I see is I want to deal with my only trouble ball since everything else is optimal. And I really make that decision because I've got a ball that lets me set up for that trouble ball immediately, and that's the 5. So I'm going to shoot the 5. Let's go ahead and get the video playing again here. I'm going to shoot the 5 ball and play position for that up table ball. And then probably, if I remember correctly, I'm simply going to bring the cue ball back to center table. And the reason is there's so many options. The 7 ball goes. The 1 ball goes in this corner. If I come past the 15, I'll be able to shoot the 9 ball. If I come even farther, I'll be able to shoot the 10. There's just lots of options. Now, you don't want to get too careless. You want to make a decision about how far you want to come. You don't want to come to here, because if you shoot the 7, you're going to bump into the 11. So you definitely want to set a range for where you're trying to get on this 14 ball, probably between here to here, which I accomplished pretty much right in that range. So I could shoot the 7 ball now. I could shoot the 1. It looks like I could shoot the 9 as well. And I believe I do choose the 9. And this is probably the only time that I'm going to bump a ball. And I bump the 9 ball down. And I think that that was a really safe shot. Let's pause for a second and take a look. I think that was a really safe shot because had the cue ball stopped here, whoops, get my pen going again. If had the cue ball stopped here, I'd have the 15 in the side, or if it came down a little bit farther, 15 in the corner. Obviously, the 10 ball is going to be an insurance ball, so I really wasn't worried about getting a follow-up shot. But I wanted to bump the 10 ball down because it would still be close to the 3. So that really opened things up. And what you want to pay attention to when you're bumping balls in these situations is you don't want to bump a ball towards another ball. So it really wasn't, the 2 ball was never going to get tied up with the 8. I knew that the 2 ball was going to come down here. If for example, you ended up with this shot shooting the 7, you're bumping the 11 towards other balls. So that's rarely going to be a good bump unless if you're going to hit it really hard to make sure that all these balls separate and open up. So this was a controlled bump, and it might be the only time that my cue ball hit another ball. I'm not sure. You can see by my posture that I'm looking at shooting the 10. That's the obvious shot, easy shot. You can shoot the 2 next, etc. However, that's really not advancing my position. Again, I'm shooting off my soldiers without accomplishing anything. I need to deal with these 2 balls and these 2 balls and get on a break shot. So again, I'm evaluating the table, going back to the beginning of my rack analysis. So now what does the table look like? It looks like the 3 and the 1 are my best break balls. So I'd like to preserve both if possible, but definitely at least 1. And I need to deal with these 4 balls. So once the 10 is gone, the 6 and the 13 both go in this pocket. But however, I'm looking at it and the 6 goes without the 10 moving. So the 10 is not a blocker ball. So again, I need to deal with these 4 balls. So it's for that reason that I decide to shoot the 3 in the side. So I'll get the video going again here. Whenever possible, it's really nice to preserve a break shot on both sides of the rack so you have options. But in this case, I still have other options, and I've got the rack is in such an optimal condition that there's no negative aspects to shooting this 3. I'm going to come over here and get a shot on that 10. Getting a shot on this 10 ball is more important than preserving the 3 as a break shot later. So that's the right shot. And the reason is the 10 is somewhat of a trouble ball, and that's a little bit close to the side pocket on the rail. It can be difficult to get on, so you don't want to wait till late in the rack. But I'm using the 10 ball to transition back over here to deal with these balls. Whoop, I thought I was going to come straight across. Actually, I'm going to use the 6. I forgot about that. So instead of shooting the balls that are already open, I'm using 1 ball to get on a trouble ball to deal with my other problem balls and preserving these balls. So that's good straight pool. So now I've got a shot on the 7. I'm going to come across. Let's see where I come across to. Well, probably going to shoot the 15 now. Yeah, so I can use the 15 to get on the 13. And I know, I'm going to pause this for a second. Let's see. Okay. I know that at this point in the rack, I've made the decision to break the rack with the 1 and to use the 13 as my key ball. Now the 13 in the side is not a great key ball because you just got to get perfect down here in order to use that. But I'm anticipating shooting the 13 and then these 3 balls and using either the 2 or the 6 most likely to come back this way or come back forward to center table, because I don't want the screen to get too clustered. So if you look at the shot line to the 11 ball, if I get my cue ball on the shot line straight in, it's a simple matter to just draw the cue ball back, and then I've got a good break shot on the 1. Alternatively, if I get my cue ball on this side of the shot line, I have a number of different ways to go to the rail and come back out to center table for a shot on the break shot. So that's my plan. That's why I'm playing the balls in this order. We're going to learn in a minute a real good lesson why that's not optimal. But let's take a look at how this works out. So I'm thinking I could shoot 13, 8, 10, and then use the 2 to come out to center table. But I haven't done that. I'm going to go 13, 10, 2. And it's at this point that you need to make a decision, because by playing the balls in this order, the 8 ball has become my K2. In other words, the 8 ball is the ball I'm going to use to get on my key ball. So I could use a number of different angles. So here's the shot line on the 8. So if my cue ball ends up high, I can come 2 rails and get on the 11. If my cue ball ends up low, I can go 1 rail to center table and get on the 11. The other alternative is to go past the 8 ball. And so if I go from the 2 up in this direction, then I could perhaps stun to center table. Or if I get straight in on the 8, I can draw back and come out. Now, I'll ask you to consider those 4 options. They all seem like reasonable shots, and those are very controllable position routes. So this seems like a pretty good plan. Let's watch and see how it turns out. So I decide here to get an outside angle on this 8 ball and draw the cue ball back, and yeah, ooh, not so good is what I just said, because I ended up almost straight in. I have to cut the ball just slightly to my right. Not good, not optimal at all. Now, I could, if I had gotten the cue ball where I wanted, which would have been here, then there's not a problem at all, but that didn't happen. And so now I've got to shoot a follow shot with inside English while I'm jacked up over the break ball. And those are the results. So I'm going to set it back up and try again. Just a missed shot, and it's just a little miscalculation. And so I shoot it again. Now I ask you, is this where you want your cue ball when you're shooting your K2 ball? What I was expecting to have happen is the cue ball to go forward more on that 8 ball shot with the inside English and come this direction. So I'd be much closer and have a much more controllable shot. Now, from where I am, can I get on the break shot? Probably. Let's watch. Sure. So that's a pretty good break shot. I think optimal would be if the cue ball was just a little bit farther. I really like this parallel angle when the cue ball and the break ball are the same distance from the rail. But this is workable and I make it. But let's go back and take a look at my end pattern. So first of all, if you're playing straight pull and you're trying to improve, you might look at this shot and say, this was the failure point. In other words, when I shot this 2, I played bad position. So if I'm keeping a logbook of my efforts, I might write down that failure to play good position was my failure point. Or would you have put down in your logbook that it was a missed shot because I missed the 8 ball right to here? Was that the failure, that I missed the 8 ball? Well, I'm going to suggest to you that neither of those was a failure. Sure, I could have played both of those better. Had I played better position, I would have been able to come this way easily to get on my key ball. Had I not missed the 8 ball, possibly my cue ball would have come over here and gotten perfect on the 11. So both of those are a failure point. However, the real failure point was earlier in the rack. I'm going to suggest to you that this was the failure point. The failure point was end pattern planning. And here's why. I very quickly decided that the 11 was my K2, and all I had to do was come to center table. The 11 was my key ball. So all I had to do was come to center table and it'd be golden. Well, the optimal situation for the one ball break shot is a key ball that's here, directly above the break shot, that I can shoot into the side pocket. And then the optimal K2 ball would be something over here, where position is nearly automatic to shoot this ball in the corner pocket, and bing, I'm right there on my key ball. That would be optimal. Now, if you remember earlier in the rack, there was a ball here and I shot it off. But I never had this key ball to begin with. So given those two, the fact that I did not have the optimal situation, I needed to look for a better key ball. And I've talked about this in previous racks of the week, but often if you don't have the optimal key ball and K2 ball above the break ball, a ball in this area or below the break ball is often your best opportunity, and even a ball that's on the rail, on the bottom rail, below the break ball. And so when I look at this rack, this end pattern, a year after shooting it, what I see not today is that the 10 ball is my best key ball. And the reason why is I have a perfect K2 ball in the 2. Because I just need to come off the rail from the 2 ball a little bit, and I've got an inside angle on the 10, and this position is extremely dependable to get on my break shot. Just one rail off the side rail. And so recognizing that as the end pattern means that the optimal situation here would be to shoot the 15 ball first and play position on the 11 ball next, because I can use the 11 ball to get position on the 13, probably back in this pocket. Or I could shoot the 11, shoot the 15 and shoot the 13 next, but preserving a low angle on the 13 to come up here on the 11. So the 11 would be the 3rd ball in my end pattern. And the reason why is anything close to a stop shot on the 11 gets me on the 8 with the correct angle to get down onto the 2. So whether you shoot 15, 11, 13, 15, 13, 11 doesn't really matter. What matters is that these balls are above the last 3 balls in my end pattern, and I can use either one of these to get on that 8 ball. So I think that would have been the optimal end pattern. 15, 11, 13 or 15, 13, 11, getting the angle on the 8 so that I can come down here and have a very slight angle on the 2 and pop off the rail. Now I want to ask you, consider this end pattern that I just described and getting how likely is it? 1 out of 100 tries, how many times are you going to get the cue ball from the 2 ball to here, or to here, or to here, to anywhere below straight in to this 10 ball? I would say 99 out of 100 times. And then how many times from that position are you going to get the cue ball to the side rail and out here for an optimal break ball? Again, probably close to 99 times out of 100. So we can go back to later in the rack and compare. So here we are later in the rack as I shot it. How many times out of 100 are you going to get from this K3 ball to optimal position on the 8, and then 2 rails to get optimal position on the 11? When you're coming 2 rails, you're trying to get your cue ball from this rail past that shot line, and you might end up pretty far away. I would say it's much less than 99 out of 100. Alternatively, you could shoot this 8 ball. Let's clear these lines. Alternatively, and that's a big if you got optimal position on this 8, you could go 1 rail straight up, and that would be a higher percentage play, I think. But would it be 99 out of 100 like the 10 ball as a key ball? That's a question for you to answer. I think that's a personal decision. Some people are going to be much more confident in this position, or some players might be much more confident in sending the cue ball forward off the 2 ball and then going 2 rails out of the corner, in this direction, shooting the 8 ball over here. So a lot of this kind of is personal preference, but in my opinion, the best end pattern is the one that I showed previously, where we clear these upper balls first. The reason is, it's the higher percentage play. In Babe Cranfield's book, The Straight Pool Bible, he talks about, I don't remember the exact quote, but it's something to the effect of, if I had a shot that was 95% successful, I'm going to look around for one that's 99% successful. He talks about in his book also what it takes to be a great straight pool player, and that's consistency. And you get consistency through minimal cue ball movement. So that's what you're looking for. How can I move the cue ball as little as possible and have the highest percentage, not only ball to pocket, but positional route? That's the key. Okay, enough said about that. Let's take a look at the break shot. I have an inside angle, and you can see that I'm cueing with low. Yeah. Oh, I didn't shoot with low. That must have been a center ball. That was just a stun shot. If you notice, the cue ball backed up, and then it came forward again. Let's take a look again and watch the 7 ball, or the one next to it, the stripe. Yeah. This stripe ball, if you noticed, went straight to the bottom rail and back up, and that's what re-broke the rack the second time. Thank you for watching, and I hope you found that informative and helpful. If you did, please hit the like button and consider subscribing. Check out my book, A Short Stop on Straight Pool. You can find it at shortstoponpool.com. And stay tuned for next week's Rack of the Week.